Those hostages aren't back. I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
Greetings, one and all. Super Tuesdays here in the Holy Land, the holy city of Elon Moreshchem, right next to my holy yeshiva. We are on the 14th day of the month of Tevet, 5785. First, as always, the class is for the sake of heaven, to remove the divine presence from the exile, to improve ourselves, every one of us, one small step. Today, one small step forward is a gigantic step of yesteryear. Also, to thank on the earth, to thank our sponsor, our great channel, Mike's channel, Voice of Judea, for sponsoring this class, putting it up on his channel, and for all the great things that him and the volunteers do. We all owe him so much. Thank you, Mike. Number two, last but not least, the blog of Tomer Devorah, Palm Tree of Deborah, one word. Check it out. If you have some time, spend it on that well worth blog. Thank you. Okay, today on the heels of the 20th of January, the inauguration of Trump. This is a extremely important and fundamental class. Try to get the word out, pass it, share it, whatever those funky terms are. The message, the lesson must be heard, because our voice is not strong enough. So help us. Do your share. Help us get this message across. Recently, Trump has warned that if the hostages are not returned by January 20th, in 6 days, I quote, "All hell will break out in the Middle East." If you thought it was just in the Middle East, so hold on here. Back to the quote. It won't be good for Hamas, or frankly, anyone for that matter. Don't think it's just hell for Hamas or hell for the people of the Middle East. Hint, hint. No, it won't be good for anyone. It's hell for everyone. Now, as we all know, today, for some time, for many thousands of years, there has been no prophecy since the days of the last prophet, Malachi. There has been no prophecy. So, when are we able to hear messages, possible messages from God? Well, we all know from our own life, we see so many of these messages that we receive right and left from God. We just have to be honest with ourselves and try to listen to the message behind events that happen in our lives. But there's an interesting concept of a bat kol, a voice from heaven. A voice from heaven, which sometimes means that God, even though there's no prophecy to relay to a prophet, God picks various world leaders or so-called world leaders to articulate various messages actually from above. I believe, my humble opinion is, I believe that Trump hit it big time here. Come January 20th, all hell is about to break out. I believe this is one of those heavenly messages, and Trump is the messenger. Just look around at the total tipsy-turvy, upside down, turmoil, upheaval in the United States, from coast to coast, east to west, from Los Angeles to New York with those devastating fires. Some amazing fires, day number 7. Whoa! New York. If we would concentrate on every single facet of American life, in all areas of life, political, economical, religious, down the whole board, we see that every facet of America, of American life, is on the brink, is on the edge. We've seen in Los Angeles historic monuments totally destroyed. They will never return. God is cleansing the world. In Judaism, in the Torah, there are 2 methods of making something pure and kosher. One is water, and the second is fire. God is cleansing the world through fire and water. It is so symbolic, these historical monuments being destroyed. America will not return to what it was. Those historical monuments have fallen. Trump has warned us, all hell will be breaking out. We go further in this tremendous statement of Trump, all hell will break out. Iran's back is against the wall. And when a country has its back against the wall and they're desperate people will do anything and everything to survive. Only God knows what they are capable of doing come January 20th, when they understand, when they realize, and believe me, they do, that Trump is coming to town. All hell will break out. They have nothing to lose. Turkey, Erdogan, promising the masses to lead the people to Jerusalem. To lead the people to Jerusalem. According to Erdogan, Jerusalem belongs to the Turkish people. Well, Mr. Erdogan, he's on the top of the world after a successful orchestrating of the rebels in Syria, the takedown of the Syrian government there. He has his next vision of marching and liberating, God forbid, Jerusalem. All hell breaking out. The leader of the rebels, El-Jolani, today sits on Israel's back doorstep. He's right behind us. Drunk with his success from leading the rebels to a victory over Bashar Assad. And in an interview taken with him 2 or 3 years ago, he's quoted as saying, every true Muslim has an obligation to liberate Palestine. I'm going to read that one more time. Every true Muslim has an obligation to liberate Palestine. They don't call him Jolani Golani for nothing. Listen world, listen Jews, all Muslim, every Muslim has an obligation. These are not peace seekers. These are not people that you cut deals with, you make treaties with. These are people that are coming to annihilate the Jewish state. You better get up and annihilate them first. Hell breaking out. Hostages. OMG. From government officials that are on the inside telling us details of this nightmare, of this capitulation, humiliation. Folks, hundreds of Arab terrorists being released. Thousands of Arabs, including terrorists, returning to northern, closer to us here in Israel, to northern Israel, retreating from the Nitzarim junction. What in the world? Why did so many hundreds have so many hundreds of soldiers? Every day you're afraid to turn on any type of media, any type of news. The bad news blues just keeps on rolling. If we witnessed the 7th of October, Simchat Torah, what we're talking about, God forbid, in this deal, via America's pressure on Israel to agree, they have a hand, a strong hand in this tragedy. What we're talking about here is 10 times worse. October 7th, multiply it 10 times. Hell breaking out. Folks, remember those words. You have been warned by the mouth of the Don himself. Don't say, I didn't know. Nobody gave me a heads up. All hell will break out. Welcome, January 20th. And now, a warning, a little bit of a different type of warning to the Jewish Trump worshippers. Here we go. Also, you have been warned. One of the first moves Trump made after the elections was pushing a ceasefire on Israel. Hezbollah was on the brink of disaster, destruction, and Who's to the rescue? Trump to the rescue. Instead of annihilation, now they've been given 2 months, 60 days to regroup, to attack Israel at a later time. 2, another first move after Trump's victory in the elections, kissing the hand of the king of Saudi Arabia. Also arming them with additional billions of dollars worth of arms. Know that Saudi Arabia is the number 3 country in the world after Ukraine and Japan in U.S. arms sales. Number 3. They are armed to the teeth, baby. With his big sign, how much the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia. Number 3, in 2019, Iran shoots down an American surveillance drone in international airspace. Trump originally ordered a military strike against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corporate before reversing that decision. When asked why he reversed the decision, listen to this answer. When we learned that there would be an estimated 150 casualties on the Iranian side, we reversed the decision to attack. Amazing. Unbelievable. 4, 5 years ago, America assassinated one of the leading generals of the Iranian army. His name was Qasem Soleimani. Iran responded with 12 ballistical missiles on an Iraqi army base housing U.S. troops. Trump once again refused to retaliate. Five, Trump, like Biden, no difference, also planned to leave Afghanistan, to run away from Afghanistan. We know now that America went, how many people sacrificed their lives to oust the Taliban? Well, now, who's back in power? The Taliban. Trump was going to do it in a more elegant way, not what we saw, what we witnessed, them running for their lives, and all the American weapons recovered, taken by the Taliban. 6, Qatar, the #1 global leader of state-sponsored jihadist terrorism. America has its biggest, largest army base in the Middle East, in Qatar. The name of the base, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Al-Udeid. If not for the presence of this American base, Qatar would be history, either by one of a few candidates. Could be Saudi Arabia, could be Iran. They would totally be destroyed in a minute. Trump has never threatened Qatar. Once again, the leading state sponsor of terrorism, global terrorism. Never threatened to do something very simple. Listen, if you don't, Trump has never told Qatar, if you don't do 3 things, we're taking our base and we're leaving. Good luck to you. Number 1, a halt of supporting terrorism. Number 2, halting slavery. You heard that right? You don't have to clean your ears. Saudi Arabia is number 1 amongst Arab states in slavery. For every 1,000 Saudi Arabians, 21.3 are slaves. But not too far behind us, Qatar is number 7, 6.8 slaves for every 1,000 people. This is who we are doing business with. Slave traders. We won't get into the details of the different types of slavery that these places pump out. Number 3, closing of Al Jazeera network. Next, number 7. One of the first moves after election victory was to visit the ruling family of Qatar, the Al Thani family. Trump had beautiful things to say about these lowlives, and then, if that's not bad enough, commending Qatar, slave drivers, global terrorists, Nazi propaganda from Al Jazeera. Besides for praising Qatar, he goes on to say there is no daylight between us and the Al Thani family. World, you have been warned. There is no daylight between us, America, Trump, and the Al Thani family. We see eye to eye. Straight from the oven, an imam, a religious Muslim leader, who, when being interviewed on Fox News, would not condemn Hezbollah as being a terrorist organization. This imam will be giving a benediction January 20th at the inauguration of Trump. This information is from the Jewish Insider, today's edition. Nothing like being blessed by cursed people. Number 9, very often Trump pushes the dual loyalty button on the Jewish people. During a White House Hanukkah party, Trump stated, Israel, your country, Netanyahu, your prime minister. Got that? Quote, Israel, talking to American Jews in the White House, Israel is your country, Israel is your prime minister. Folks, that is exactly the portion of the week. When we read the first portion of Exodus, the Egyptians were afraid, were frightened that the Jewish people were gaining strength, and the Jewish people, when push comes to shove, and Egypt would be under attack, the Jewish people would be a fifth column and join other forces. This is exactly what the average American thinks when he hears Trump, your country, Israel, your Prime Minister Netanyahu, looking at the Jews as a fifth column. This is exactly how the Jewish people went from a tremendous high pedestal in Egypt. The vice president was Joseph himself. The Jews were very successful in Egypt. This presenting the Jewish people as a fifth column in Egypt is what brought the Jewish people to annihilation, to genocide, to slavery. 10,000 Jewish babies were thrown into the Nile River. Last but not least, in today's Politico magazine, regarding the fears of Trump using the military, the United States military, on the streets of America against citizens. A leading lawyer declared, I quote, "I think things are going to be bad, really bad. Trump is angry. He wants to see guys with uniforms on the streets of America." Folks, I think things are going to be bad, really bad. Trump is angry. You have been warned. Supporters, worshipers of Trump. Okay, we will, with God's help here, we will begin a trek on a long trail of betrayal, pun intended, a long trail of history of betrayals by allies, backstabbers, treaties, alliances. Let's take it from the top. What better place to begin than the Abraham Accords, but not what you're thinking. Abraham Accords. Open up your Torah, your Chumash, book of Genesis, chapter 21, verse 22. There we read about a peace treaty between Abraham and Avimelech, the king of the Philistines. The Yalkut Shimoni, the word of our sages, in Genesis 94. Look it up. I summarize. Abraham, in Genesis 7:8, is promised the land of Israel by God for his descendants, for eternity. Abraham makes a covenant with the king of Philistines, Avimelech, allowing them, listen closely, to remain in the land of Israel. The covenant was agreed upon via 7 sheep, collateral. Our sages reveal that this covenant regarding the land of Israel, so to speak, brought out God's wrath on the Jewish people. Once again, the treaty was cut via 7 sheep. These are the harsh words of the Yalkut Shimoni. You made a covenant with 7 sheep. Know that the Philistines will kill 7 of your righteous leaders, Samson, Hophni, Pinchas, Saul, and his 3 sons. You made a covenant with 7 sheep with the king of the Philistines. Know that 7 temples will be destroyed by the Philistines. Ohel Moed, Nov, Gilgal, Givon, Shiloh, and the 2 temples. You made a covenant with 7 sheep with this person on the land of Israel, allowing him to rule the land of Israel. For 7 months, the Philistines will capture the Holy Ark, and it will travel in the fields of the Philistines for 7 months. 7 sheep on this treaty for 7 generations. Redemption will be delayed. There are 3 opinions. What does that mean? For 7 generations, the redemption of the Jewish people will be delayed. One opinion is, if we go from Abraham to Moses, 7 generations till the exodus of Egypt. Opinion number 2, from Abraham until receiving of the Torah, 7 generations. Number 3, liberation of Jerusalem in the times of King David. Believe it or not, there were still Philistines in Jerusalem. The leaders of the Jewish people were not able to liberate Jerusalem because of the fact that there were still descendants of the King Avimelech of the Philistines. So for 7 generations, we were not able to liberate the most holy, the heart of the Jewish people, Jerusalem. Now that is amazing, breathtaking. Let's look at this alliance, this treaty. Was it kept by the Philistines? Well, check this out. Amazing stuff. Number 1, if we look in Genesis chapter 26, verse 15, we will see how long this treaty lasted for. But not only that, sometimes people have a tendency to say, listen, for a couple of years it was worth it. No, it wasn't worth it, because if you look down the road at the payment the Jewish people had to pay, it wasn't worth it at all. Temporary quiet for how many years? It's irrelevant. The end result is what counts. It was devastating for the Jewish people, this treaty. In the times of Isaac, the Philistines destroyed the wells that Abraham and his men had dug. In the times of Abraham, this is his son. This is not a long time afterwards. This is 37 years afterwards. Number 2, when the Jews are about to leave Egypt, God tells them not to go the way of the Philistines. Why? Because there was a tribe within the Jewish people, the tribe of Ephraim, from the family of Joseph. They miscalculated the Exodus, the redemption. They left 30 years before the Exodus of Egypt. And they left and they went into they entered the turf of the Philistines. And our sages tell us that 200,000 Jews were murdered by these Philistines. We're talking about a few hundred years after this treaty was signed between Abraham and Avimelech. Okay? It is not worth 200,000 Jews. This could be found in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer in the 48th chapter. Last but not least, Philistines in the time of Samson. This could be found in the Tractate of Sota, page 10, side A. How was Samson allowed to fight against the Philistines? The Philistines were wreaking havoc on the Jewish people. So it says in the Talmud, because of the fact that they weren't keeping their part of the deal. They weren't keeping their part of the deal. So we see, summarizing from the time of Isaac through afterwards, 30 years before the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt, through the times of the judges. This was a calamity of unbelievable proportion upon the Jewish people. In summarizing, I can't do it better than the words of Tana Dve Eliyahu, chapter 7. Elijah the prophet says the following: from here we say, from this covenant between Abraham and Avimelech, we have come to the conclusion that there is no nation in the world that subjugates the Jewish people for hundreds of years. Its source, the nation's source of energy, where do they receive this ability to subjugate the Jewish people for hundreds of years? It all stems from this agreement, this treaty between Abraham and the king of the Philistines, Avimelech. That is an amazing line. If we look throughout Jewish history, all the nations that subjugated the Jewish people, the source, the foundation of their success is from this first treaty of Abraham. Don't touch that dial. With God's help, we'll be continuing on this subject next week.